We are back here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast to sort of continue on what we were talking about last segment with giving our three keys to the game for the Kansas City Chiefs in order for them to get a victory. Now, in this segment, if you're just joining us, we're going to do the same thing for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Focusing on the Eagles in this segment, I've got the three things I believe that must happen for them to get in the way of history and stop this Chiefs dynasty from going down and cementing their legacy as potentially one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant, in NFL history. So the Eagles are playing for a lot of people, I would assume, right? Because a lot of people don't want to see the Chiefs win again. They don't want to see them win another Super Bowl. So the Eagles got a lot riding on their plate. And with that being said, one of the main things I need to see them do in order for them to push forward with a potential victory would be lining up in man coverage mostly. I want to see a lot of man coverage because they got the personnel to do it, one, with especially versus these receivers, right? No shade to Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, these guys on Juju Smith-Schuster, another one. No shade to them, but I think the Eagles corners are very good. And I think, Quinyon Mitchell's played fantastic. In his rookie year, he's already in the Super Bowl. It's amazing, and he's contributed a lot. It's not like he's just been along for the ride. He's done a very good job opposite of Darius Slay. That's the other one. And Cooper DeJean, another rookie, playing a big role in that secondary as well. So lining up, trying to man them up as much as possible because, the Chiefs run a lot of RPOs. And with those RPOs in addition to other things that they obviously do very, very well, they pick apart these zone defenses, right? Just because, the RPOs are a great way to combat that, but just in general, with Patrick and Andy Reid on one side, they destroy zone defenses. And Travis Kelce as well lives off of killing, these zone defenses as well. So if we are going to push more towards one, man coverage seems a bit more risky, but I believe it's a risk worth taking in this point because you could probably run a lot of high safety or a lot of high single safety and then have somebody else kind of roaming the middle. Maybe you double up Travis Kelce in the middle of the field with that other safety and you can play it like that. And not only that, but you could also bring some more pressure that way. If it's one-on-one everywhere, that's probably what? 4 on the defensive line across the middle, 4 or 3 potentially in the secondary manning everybody up. That's probably at least like 7 or 8 players right there. Then you have another 3, or I should say 2, to blitz and bring additional pressure to Patrick Mahomes more often than not, right? With somebody else lining up and roaming and kind of being a double cover for some of the other personnel, right? Probably Travis Kelce. So that's the way I would mostly play it. I think man coverage with these corners especially, you got to take advantage of it, right? And not only that, but you just can't be afraid to go into those battles, right? Because the Eagles play a lot of two-shell, everything in front of them defense, right? And that works a lot, right? And, the zones that they run, it's very well disciplined and drilled in by Vic Fangio. But I think this time when you're playing, quite literally, potentially the greatest of all time, right? Not a lot of people played a lot of zone against Brady, and I don't think it's going to work any better against Patrick. So I think being not being scared to do that and play man coverage and just bring a lot of pressure to Patrick. We saw the Buccaneers have a lot of success with bringing pressure at Patrick and kind of throwing everything off. I think the Eagles should adopt a similar sort of style in this game because those RPOs, right, they do a lot, right? You think it's a run, everybody drops down and kind of leans forward thinking that they have to stop the run. Then you get out of your zones and there's a guy just sitting wide open in with 7 yards of space around him, right? You don't want to avoid that because those are just easy completions, right? And then the Chiefs are just ahead of the chains each and every time, right? So trying to avoid that as much as possible, I think is the way to go. And you can't just rush for. These guys are great, but you can't just rush for each and every time and just play zone. You can't be scared to bring somebody else and take that risk because it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of that to beat the Chiefs. So man coverage and, bringing a lot of pressure is one for the Philadelphia Eagles. A second thing that I'd like them to see, this time on the other side of the ball, on their offense, I want to see them stretch out this defense a little bit more. I want to see them push the pace, push the limits on the two safeties, these corners. I don't want to see a lot of people around the box. And that's probably what they want to do, right? Trying to stop Saquon Barkley. But if you're the Eagles, you have the perfect team to keep this defense honest as much as possible, because they lived it, 2 seasons ago, right? This defense is very familiar with the threat of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. They were all there last time they played in the Super Bowl. So they're already going in with a little bit of caution. But I think early in this game, or a good amount of times in this game, I need to see the Eagles try and stretch them out with a deep ball, or just keeping them honest, right? Because the more you do that, and if you complete some of these big plays, the more you do that, right, those safeties kind of got to start staying back a little bit, right? They got to be wary that, all right, Jalen's going to keep pulling the trigger if we keep coming so close to the box, and they're just getting chunk play after chunk play. Let's kind of stick back here a little bit and get them to back off, kind of to stop. So by doing that, you eliminate the threat of Justin Reed, who does a lot for them in and around the box. He's a tackling machine. He's always around the ball, it looks like. So the more you can try to keep him 20 yards down the field is always going to be a victory for them. And getting them to respect your wide receivers, right? I know they run the ball and they do it very well, and these guys are great sports about blocking and everything like that, but they're great players too, right? Get them involved, get them to make an impact in this game. Like we saw A.J. Brown catch that long touchdown in the last Super Bowl that they played. Doing stuff like that, I think, can go a long way. And the more you line up that box, obviously, gives more room for Saquon to run the ball, Jalen to run the ball if everyone's just down the field, right, worrying about the receivers. That's a great way to keep this defense honest and just not letting them get in a rhythm, right? Because as soon as you get a tackle for a loss, right, these corners are hitting, the linebackers are driving on the ball, everyone's jumping around, celebrating, getting in their face, right? That they're all hyped up, right, when they make a play like that. The more you can avoid things like that and keep them on the back foot with this personnel that the Eagles have is going to be great for them if they're able to do that and stay ahead of the chains. So stretch out this defense, get them to back off from the line of scrimmage, and then that'll open up a lot for the Eagles offense. And then lastly here, I would say along that point, you got to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, right? You got Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, who looks like is going to play, Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff. All of these guys have to contribute to making sure you're winning that part of the ball, winning that line of scrimmage, because you're going to have great matchups all across the board, right? Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Caliendo trying to block Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle of the defensive line. Malik Jefferson also, when he comes in, is going to be another one. All three of those guys rotating in. Best on best, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith really make up some of the best, or the best interior offensive line, I think, all season. And if Joe Thuney was in there, that would be the best 3 interior linemen that there are in the NFL. And going up against a young, up-and-coming player like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, who's not going to be an easy block, winning that line of scrimmage is going to be huge for the Eagles, right? Not getting kind of stonewalled and not making any sort of pressure, or really not affecting the line of scrimmage. You got to get in there. You got to send as many guys as possible just for them to start worrying about you, and sending 2 guys over there, maybe even 3, just in case. And then that way it lets other guys, benefit off of that. If you're winning on the inside, then the outside becomes a lot easier for guys like Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat and those guys. So winning that line of scrimmage, not just getting stonewalled or even pushed back, is going to be huge for them. And the same thing on the other side, obviously, right? Not letting Chris Jones and these guys in the middle of the field or in the middle of the defensive line for the Chiefs push you back in any sort of way, right? Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, in his first season replacing Jason Kelce is going to be huge. Mekhi Becton on the other side as well made that transition from the outside to the inside very seamlessly, but still, if you're Chris Jones, if you're these guys in the middle, try and create a disadvantage there, right? Try and push the pocket in the middle of the field if you can. But for the Eagles, right, try to avoid that as much as possible. And winning the line of scrimmage is obviously going to be huge, right? It dictates the run game. On the other side of things, if you're winning the line of scrimmage and the defensive side of things, you're stopping their run and you're keeping them in 2nd and 7s, 3rd and 6, 2nd and 9s, and stuff like that, right? That's what you want to do. So that's what I want to see from them. And really, just trying to do that, and it'll open up a lot more things for them if they're able to do that. So man coverage on defense, don't be afraid to do that. Stretch this defense out as much with the passing game, but don't overcook it, don't overdo it. You got to still run the ball, but try and keep them as honest as possible. And then the last one, winning the line of scrimmage, right? If you win the line of scrimmage, you get in Patrick's face, mostly on the defensive side of the ball, is going to be massive for you, right? Trying to keep the Chiefs off schedule as much as possible. So those are the 3 things that I want to see from the Eagles come Super Bowl Sunday. If they do all of that, I would find it very hard for them to lose a game unless they turn the ball over like 2 or 3 times or something like that. So that's going to be huge. We're going to continue previewing that game a little bit more tomorrow, but that's all that we have today on the Super Bowl, just to make sure. Yeah, so tomorrow we're going to do a lot more around it and give our final predictions as well. But for right now, we're going to go elsewhere to the NFL, to Pittsburgh, and talk about this story that came out about the potential friction on Russell Wilson and offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, how they clashed on the Steelers' offensive philosophy and how that could affect this team on whether or not they bring back Russell Wilson this offseason. So we're going to dive into that, give all the details and just my reaction to it when we return after this.